September 26, 1983, 12:14 a.m. Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov is sitting at his post in a top-secret underground facility when every alarm in the building goes off simultaneously. The screen in front of him flashes a single word in large red letters: launch. The computer system is telling him that the United States has just fired a nuclear missile at the Soviet Union. It is telling him this with a confidence rating the system describes as highest. Petrov has 12 minutes. That is how long a nuclear missile takes to cross the distance between an American launch site and Soviet territory. 12 minutes to decide whether what he is looking at is real. 12 minutes before the question becomes irrelevant, because the answer will be arriving overhead. The protocol is clear. If the system detects an American launch, Petrov reports it up the chain of command immediately. His superiors report it higher, and the Soviet Union launches its response. That is the doctrine. Launch on warning. An eye for an eye, fired before the first eye has even closed. Petrov does not pick up the phone. He stares at the screen, and in the 12 minutes that follow, Stanislav Petrov makes the most important decision any single human being has ever made. He decides it is probably a mistake. He is right. And because he is right, you are alive to read this. To understand how one man in a bunker came to be holding the fate of the world in his hands, you have to understand what 1983 actually was, not what history remembers it as, what it felt like inside the governments that were pointing nuclear weapons at each other across an ocean. The Cold War in 1983 is not the Cold War of careful diplomacy and managed tension that people imagine in retrospect. It is something closer to a system running at full panic. The American-Soviet relationship had deteriorated to the point where the Soviet Union as a system, not just the Kremlin, not just Andropov, not just the KGB, but as an entire institutional system, was geared to expect an attack and to retaliate very quickly. It was on hair-trigger alert. It was nervous and prone to mistakes and accidents. In March 1983, President Ronald Reagan gives a speech calling the Soviet Union an evil empire and announces the Strategic Defense Initiative, a program to build space weapons capable of shooting down incoming missiles. To American ears, this sounds like an ambitious defense program. To Soviet ears, it sounds like preparation for a first strike. If America can shoot down Soviet missiles, then America can launch its own missiles, knowing Soviet retaliation is survivable. The calculation of mutual assured destruction, the only thing that has kept your peace for 30 years, starts to look less mutual. In September 1983, 3 weeks before Petrov's shift, Soviet fighter jets shoot down a Korean Airlines passenger aircraft that had strayed into Soviet airspace. All 269 people on board are killed, including a U.S. congressman. Reagan calls it a massacre. Soviet-American relations reach their lowest point in years. Both sides are watching each other with a paranoia that has moved beyond analysis into something more primitive and more dangerous. A former president of the World Security Institute later says the false alarm that happened on Petrov's watch could not have come at a more dangerous phase in the entire Cold War. This is the world Stanislav Petrov goes to work in on the night of September 25, 1983. He is 44 years old. He is a software engineer who helped design the very system he is now monitoring. He knows its capabilities better than almost anyone. He also knows its flaws. Serpukhov 15 is not on any public map. It does not officially exist. 60 kilometers south of Moscow, buried underground, it houses the command center for the Soviet early warning satellite network, codenamed Oko, an archaic Russian word. 9 satellites circle the Earth in carefully calculated orbits, their infrared sensors pointed permanently at the American missile fields in Montana, North Dakota, and Wyoming. Their job is to detect the heat signature of an ICBM launch during its boost phase, the first few minutes when a missile's rocket engines are burning hottest and brightest before it arcs over the top of its trajectory and begins its descent. The system gives the Soviets approximately 15 minutes of warning, 15 minutes in which to decide whether the American first strike they have always feared is actually happening. The Oko system has only been in service since late 1982. It is not fully ready. It has been rushed into operational use before all its problems have been solved. Petrov knows this. He has spent months working on the software. He knows the system is sophisticated, and he knows it is not reliable. Shortly after midnight on September 26th, the satellite network comes alive. One of the 9 Oko satellites, Cosmos 1382, sends a signal to Serpukhov 15. The signal says a missile has been launched from Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. The system assigns the detection a highest reliability rating. The bunker's computers print this in large red letters on the main screen. Launch. The siren goes off. Every person in the bunker stops what they are doing and looks at Petrov. He is the commanding officer on duty. This decision is his. What Petrov does next is not what the protocol says he should do. The protocol says he should immediately report the launch up the chain of command. His superiors at the Soviet Air Defense Forces would then escalate. The Soviet General Staff would be informed. The National Command Authority, Yuri Andropov, the Soviet leader, who is gravely ill with kidney failure and conducting his government from a hospital bed, would receive the nuclear briefcase, and the Soviet Union would launch. This is not hypothetical. Soviet military doctrine in 1983 is launch on warning, not launch on impact. Launch on warning. Before any American missile lands. Before any confirmation that the attack is real. Before anything. Because the doctrine holds that waiting for confirmation means waiting until it is too late to respond. The entire system is designed to make the launch decision as fast as possible. Petrov is the first link in that chain, and he does not pull it. Instead, he picks up the phone to the duty officer of the Soviet Air Defense Forces and says it is a false alarm. He does not know this for certain. He suspects it, and in the next several minutes, as he waits to find out if he is right, 4 more launches are detected. The system is now telling him that 5 American missiles are heading toward the Soviet Union. Each new detection carries the same highest reliability rating. Each new alarm makes the room around him more frantic. Men are shouting. Everyone is watching him. The question in every face is the same. Why are you not reporting this? Petrov's reasoning is simple, and it saves the world. He was trained repeatedly that any American first strike would be massive. Hundreds of missiles fired simultaneously to disable Soviet retaliatory capability before a single Soviet missile can get off the ground. A first strike with 5 missiles makes no military sense. 5 missiles cannot disable anything. 5 missiles cannot prevent a Soviet response. 5 missiles is not how a superpower starts a nuclear war. If the Americans were really launching, Petrov reasons, there would not be 5 missiles. There would be hundreds. The absence of hundreds is the most important piece of information on his screen. The second thing is the ground radar. The Soviet land-based radar installations that search for missiles rising above the horizon are showing nothing. They are not corroborating the satellite data. A real attack would show on both systems. It is showing on only one. The third thing is the system itself. Petrov helped build it. He knows it has never been fully tested in real conditions. He knows its reliability has been questioned internally. He knows it was put into service before it was ready. He does not trust it completely. He does trust it enough to act, but not enough to start a nuclear war on its word alone. For 23 minutes, Petrov holds his position. 23 minutes of alarms and shouting, and then the alarms stop. No missiles arrive. The Soviet ground radar remains silent. The The satellites are wrong. Cosmos 1382 has misidentified the reflection of sunlight off high-altitude clouds as the heat signature of an ICBM launch. A rare alignment of sunlight and the satellite's orbital position has created a reading indistinguishable from a real launch. The system has done exactly what it was designed to do, correctly following its own protocols, and produced a result that nearly ended human civilization. Petrov is right. The Americans have not fired. The world is still here. And within minutes of the all-clear, the questioning begins. Petrov is not celebrated. He is investigated. His superiors initially praise his judgment. General Yuri Votintsev, commander of the Soviet missile defense units, is the first to hear Petrov's account of the incident and tells him he acted correctly. Then the investigation starts. Petrov is pressed hard for failing to immediately write down the details of what happened in the official log. He was on the phone and watching the screens. He did not have a free hand to write. This is the thing they pursue him for, not the decision, the paperwork. Petrov is not punished formally. He is not rewarded formally either. He is transferred to a less sensitive posting and eventually takes early retirement. If he had been officially recognized for what he did, someone would have had to take the rap for the glitch. That means the engineers who built the system. That means the officials who approved it for operational use before it was ready. Nobody in Soviet military bureaucracy wants that conversation. So Petrov gets nothing. He goes home. His wife of 10 years has no idea any of this happened. "So what did you do?" she asks him. "Nothing," he says. That is the most accurate answer he can give. He did nothing. He did not report. He did not escalate. He did not follow the protocol that would have triggered the response that would have ended the world. He did nothing. And because he did nothing, approximately 100 million people who would have been killed in the first hours of a nuclear exchange between the United States and the Soviet Union went about their lives without knowing how close those lives had come to ending. The incident stays secret for nearly a decade. It is first revealed publicly in the early 1990s by Votintsev, who decides before his death that the story should be known. Petrov gives interviews cautiously. He says he does not know whether he should regard himself as a hero. He was simply doing his job. He was the right person at the right time. His civilian engineering training helped him make the right call, he believes. His colleagues were all professional military men with purely military training who would have followed the protocol if they had been on his shift that night. Following instructions would have meant reporting a missile launch. Reporting a missile launch would have meant escalation. Escalation would have meant response. Petrov is not a military man who follows instructions. He is an engineer who looks at data and asks whether the data makes sense. On the night of September 26, 1983, the data does not make sense. 5 missiles from a superpower that has thousands. No corroboration from ground radar. A system he knows is unreliable. He makes the call that no protocol asked him to make, and he is right. But Petrov's night is not the only near miss of 1983. 11 days after Petrov sits in Serpukhov 15 and watches the alarms go off, NATO begins a military exercise called Able Archer 83. The exercise simulates a full-scale NATO response to a hypothetical Soviet nuclear attack. Unlike previous exercises, Able Archer 83 includes new elements specifically designed to confuse and disorient Soviet observers, new command procedures, new communications formats, new escalation sequences that look, to a sufficiently paranoid observer, exactly like the real thing. Soviet intelligence reports to Moscow that unusual NATO activity is underway. Moscow, already at its highest state of alert, already convinced that America might launch a preemptive strike, begins to mobilize. Soviet military divisions move to combat positions. Nuclear weapons are transported to their launch sites. Bombers carrying nuclear warheads are scrambled. military command hands and drop off the Cheget, the Soviet nuclear briefcase. A senior U.S. Air Force intelligence officer stationed in Europe named Leonard Peru observes that the Soviets are responding to the exercise as though it is a real attack. His own instinct is to raise American alert levels in response. He does not. He waits. It is later described by the U.S. Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board as a fortuitous, if ill-informed decision. The Soviets eventually determine that Able Archer is an exercise and stand down. Another catastrophe averted. Another decision by a single person not to escalate. Another near miss that the public will not know about for years. Stanislav Petrov dies on May 19, 2017, at the age of 77. His death is not widely reported at the time. A family friend reveals it 4 months later. When the news spreads, he is briefly celebrated as the man who saved the world. There is a documentary with that title. There is a posthumous award ceremony in New York at which the former Secretary General of the United Nations says it is hard to imagine anything more devastating for humanity than all-out nuclear war between Russia and the United States. This might have occurred by accident on September 26, 1983, were it not for the wise decisions of Stanislav Yevgrafovich Petrov. Petrov's son, Dmitry, misses the ceremony because the U.S. Embassy delays his visa. Petrov's daughter, Elena, collects the award on her father's behalf. The award comes with $50,000. Petrov received almost nothing from the Soviet government that benefited from his decision while he was alive. He lived in a small flat outside Moscow. He received a German Peace Prize in 2013 worth 25,000 euros. He gave interviews when he was asked. He said the same thing each time. He was simply doing his job. He was the right person at the right time. He did not know what would have happened if someone else had been on duty that night. He suspected he did. He was probably right about that too. The satellite that caused the false alarm, Cosmos 1382, had its software rewritten after the incident to filter out sunlight reflections. The Oko System was eventually replaced by a more reliable network. The protocol that would have required immediate reporting of any detected launch, the protocol that would have started the war, remained in place. It is still in place today in some form in every nuclear-armed country on Earth. A protocol that says, if the system says attack, you respond, even if the system is wrong, even if the data does not add up, even if the man looking at the screen thinks it is probably a mistake. What saves the world on the night of September 26, 1983, is not the protocol. It is the one man the protocol does not account for. An engineer who built the system, knows its flaws, and trusts his own judgment more than he trusts the alarm. He sits in a bunker for 23 minutes with the weight of the world on a decision he is not authorized to make. He makes it anyway. He does nothing, and the world continues.